Okay, so for this topic, for this video, I was supposed to be talking about the latest Ebola outbreak in Africa, but it kind of ties into this illegal immigration problem that we're having. I mean, that's the way I see it, because right now we have this unrestricted travel, still in the midst of a pandemic, and like we're other pandemics, not pandemics, but other um, illnesses and viruses are starting to pop up. So we still have, excuse me, we still have like unrestricted travel and what else? Oh, open borders. And those in combination in like in light of all the issues we're facing today is just like a recipe for a disaster. So originally I was going to get into the Ebola outbreak, but I'm I decided I changed my mind. I'm gonna talk about it, but I want to talk about more of what's been happening in Chicago recently, the illegal immigrants that are being bused to Chicago, and then also other liberal cities like what California, I think Washington D.C. Uh, is it New York too? I'm not sure, but other sanctuary cities, I should say, and Chicago's a sanctuary city. So what's been happening recently is Governor Abbott of Texas has been transporting um, these migrants to sanctuary cities because he's saying we can't deal with it. It's too much. So why not let these sanctuary cities who claim that who um, welcome illegal immigrants to handle this problem instead of them handling it, because it's overwhelming them, which is completely understandable. And um, I also understand, like, it is, we don't need this right now either. Like, we're dealing with our own problems in Chicago. We're dealing with violence. We already have like illegal immigrants over here. We already have, and like I said, the pandemic's still going on. So we don't need um, we don't need more issues. But at the same time, if you call yourself a sanctuary city, you're basically just inviting these problems to you. So after Texas, they sent these migrants in buses, and they're still coming in, by the way. And so at first, they were welcome, and they're still being welcome. But now these sanctuary cities, including Chicago, are starting to come out and saying they're starting to complain, and they don't want to admit that it's too much of a burden on them. They can't handle it. They don't say, "Oh no, we're wrong." Like we just, people should come here like legally through the legal process, and this is too much. We can't stop, and they just want to use some sort of scapegoat. And so now they're just like throwing politics in there. They're saying, "Oh, you're using these illegal immigrants as like political pawns, like political chips, and you're like we're making this whole situation political, and they don't deserve that. It's inhumane, is what they call. That's what Lightfoot and these other um, city officials, mayors, and government mayors are saying." So yeah, they're recently coming out and saying this, but like it wouldn't have been an issue in the first place if they didn't call themselves a sanctuary city. So they basically invite this on themselves. So yeah, it is an issue, but you did this to yourself basically. It's not against the law for them to be for Texas or anybody else to do this, because there's basically a welcome mat on these sanctuary cities saying, "Hey, just bring them to us." Like it's legal because that's the purpose of being a sanctuary city. That's what you want to do. So, I mean, it is a smart move if you're dealing with that problem. You don't want to deal with just send them to somebody who does want to deal with them, who's like they're always these sanctuary cities, these liberal cities always act so eager and saying like, oh, we're you know pro um, pro immigration, and they don't want to say we're pro illegal immigration. That's basically what they are if they're a sanctuary city. And they're saying, oh, we're very welcoming. We have all these policies. We can take care of them. We have all of these safety nets in place. But the reality is, it's just too many. It's too overwhelming. We should be focusing on Chicagoans, um, and they're not. So now they're starting to complain, and um, they don't really have any sympathy because there is a way where they could solve this issue, and they just decide not to do it. And how to solve this issue is whatever process they did to become a sanctuary city like decades ago. Um, they need to, I don't know, reverse that process, or just like say they're not a sanctuary city, like whatever they have to do that to just like make Chicago not a sanctuary city anymore, then that'll stop and that won't happen again. I mean, it's too late because they're already coming over here now. Obviously, it's too late to reverse that decision. But now moving on, they need to start thinking about that and making Chicago not a sanctuary city anymore. It's really that simple. Um, there's a process, and anybody who wants to come over to the city or to this country has to, come by that process, and there won't be those issues. But are they going to do that? No, I seriously doubt it. They just want to continue to complain, and that's not really not doing anything. They're still coming over here because they're basically, with their policies, they're welcoming illegal immigrants over here. And Texas doesn't want them. They realize that they can't handle that strain. So yeah, that's what's been going on uh, in this city as far as that's concerned. And so now they're trying to like legally challenge this, but I mean, they really don't have a defense. They really don't have an argument unless they just want to stop becoming a sanctuary city. Then they can't do that. Then Texas can't do that, or any other state can't do that. But until then, they can, and they will continue to do that if they can. Uh, so yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add about that. But now, how I want to tie this into the latest Ebola outbreak, is like I said, there's still unrestricted travel, and I haven't heard anything about Biden's administration restricting travel to and from Africa, or at least where this outbreak is taking place, which is where is this? Can't the right one. Uganda. So, at least not that I heard of. There's no restricted travel to and from Uganda. Borders are still wide open. Um, and now we've got people being bused, illegal immigrants being bused to Chicago and other sanctuary cities. So all together, and then we've got these outbreaks popping up in this country and now in Africa and other parts of the world, and it's going to keep getting worse. Um, then that's how this ties into illegal immigration. As long as we keep the borders open, as long as we don't restrict travel, more people will be coming in with illnesses. They're not properly vetted. They could be like anybody, criminals. Like, great, they could be bringing illnesses over, crime over, and um, things of that nature. If they don't go through the legal process of immigration. So I remember this hasn't been the first time, it hasn't been the first Ebola outbreak. And so I looked it up because I couldn't remember the specific year that we had the Ebola outbreak, but it was in 2014. And I believe it was in the United States that we had the Ebola outbreak in 2014. And so now it's happened again, only it hasn't come over here yet. It's still being, it's still in Africa. Um, Although that could change again because of the border policies in this country. But so far it's in Africa. And so, well, let me get into more what Ebola is. They're saying Ebola is more deadly than COVID 19 because the mortality rate is a lot higher. It's 20 to 90%, I believe. And unlike COVID, which is like 0.01%, I think. So, a lot more deadly. And it's spread through bodily fluids. And what else? Well, yeah, this just recently happened, so like not a lot of updates that I've heard about. Um, but that's, I mean, it's in the news for a reason, so it's starting to become a problem in Africa. And if we're not careful, we could be, it could become the same issue over here too. Okay. I also want to tie this into something else because I was saying earlier that we have these other viruses popping up, and we are like monkeypox. That's a recent one that's becoming an issue, and we're having like these old viruses and illnesses that are starting to come back that we haven't had like in many years, like in some cases centuries. I heard something about the bubonic plague was starting to come back, polio, and some of these we don't have vaccines for because we've never had them in this country. So we're just like unprepared, and they just like keep popping up like seemingly out of nowhere. But it's not out of nowhere because I tied this into legal immigration. I also want to tie these recent outbreaks into the Bible because this is biblical. It is talked about in Revelation. Let me try to pull up the scripture, and I won't take too long. I promise to find this because there was a specific scripture that talks about pestilences, is what the Bible refers to it as. And here it is, uh, King James Version, which, oh, there are several verses. It's in Ezekiel too, because other parts of the Bible talk about the end times. But I'm just gonna I'm gonna read the verse, but just to summarize, before Jesus' second return to earth, there are gonna be warning signs and diseases, illness, sickness, and death. That's one of the major warning signs. And happening at this level, at this scale, like we're having worldwide pandemics and they're just like popping up over and over and over again. And there's just like so many of them at one time. That's never happened before in human history, and like we're seeing today. So I do believe that if we're not in the end times right now, we're pretty close to it. But like as more of these things starts to happen, I'm starting to believe more and more that we are in the last days. And this is just one of the proofs, the pestilences uh, that are continuing to pop up. So, okay, let me read this verse. Now, if you remember, the Revelation talks about the horsemen of the tribulation or the end times, and you know, as the horsemen for the death, for war, uh, and for the pestilences. And so this is Revelation chapter 6, verse 8. It says, "And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth." Okay, and I'm trying to. I mean, that's still relevant. I'm trying to find the one with the pestilences. It seems like there's a lot of them actually. Let me go to this one. I should have looked this up beforehand. I apologize. You know, the sign I'm looking for is the mark of the beast. That's the most mysterious sign. And I'm seeing all these other signs mentioned in Revelation. Um, the famine, I have been hearing about food shortages, and I don't know if inflation could potentially affect that. Well, probably not, because if things are more expensive, less people are going to buy them. I mean, well, actually, it could cause like people to panic buy. I don't know. There was one pestilence in the Bible that talked about like boils on the skin, I believe. And when monkeypox came out, and it showed the pictures of like these, it looked like sores all over the skin. And I mean, they didn't look like boils, but they still looked, similar to that. And I was thinking, like, is that the disease that Revelation was talking about with the boils? Is that monkeypox? Is that what they were? That is that what they meant? I'm not sure. It might be. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna read this one verse. I'm not sure. It says verses 49 through 50. I'm pretty sure this is in Revelation. I'm just gonna read it real fast. You can probably like type in the words and then like try to find the exactly which scripture it is in the Bible. "I will send plagues upon thee, plagues, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower. The heat shall arise that is sent over thee." So yeah, pestilence in combination with these other signs like death, famine, hunger, war, bloodshed. These are all the signs of Jesus returning. So COVID-19, monkeypox, Ebola, And I know there's going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot. It's going to get a whole lot worse, and that's what the Bible predicts. Um, but yeah, for that's all I have for this specific topic. And I will, like I said, leave any links to any sources that I used. And I'll see you in the next video.